Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
HP, what does November the 8th mean to you? Specifically, November the 8th, 1972. Where were you on that day?
I wasn't even born yet, Father Malone.
And yet the day was a momentous one. That was the day the New York Rangers faced the Vancouver Canucks.
I was not expecting that.
More importantly, it was the day that Home Box Office debuted its very first programming, which was that NHL game. Home Box Office premiering very locally in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, before spreading like a virus across the globe. Now there are 23 HBO stations. Is it even HBO anymore? We call it Max these days. Special appearance by Miss Ripley Jean.
Hey.
She's always been a Cinemax fan. HBO, the very first paid cable service to start servicing the entire United States, offering programming uninterrupted by advertising, uninterrupted by meddling television censors, unedited programming. Now they could offer concerts, they could offer a stand-up comedy, and on occasion, they could offer theatrical productions. And that's what Cablebox Theater is all about. Welcome patrons and new listeners, all alike. This is Cablebox Theater. With me in this inaugural episode, HP, host of Night Mr. Walters and composer of everything great from the Weirding Way Media Network.
Thanks. It is such a pleasure to be here, Father Malone. I'm so excited. This is such a part of our shared experiences growing up, watching these things on cable. So I'm really excited to talk about this.
And for our inaugural episode, we're going to be talking about a theatrical production from 1983. It is Wait Until Dark, the Frederick Knott penned stage play that actually premiered in 1966 at the Ethel Merriman Theater. Within a year, it had been transformed into its first separate adaptation. That was a film adaptation, directed by Terrence Young, starring Audrey Hepburn and Mr. Alan Arkin. There are some other people in there, but really, this is a two-hander. It's a two-hander with a bunch of peripheral characters. HP, had you seen the film of Wait Until Dark prior to the production we're discussing today?
I did not. I saw Wait Until Dark, the movie, much, much later. I want to say I probably saw it within the last 15 years, which is a long time, but relatively speaking, we're talking 1982 was when the HBO taped version of it was. So yeah, it was quite a bit after it. How about yourself?
Yeah, my introduction to Wait Until Dark was the theatrical production we're discussing today. Before we go any further, I want to mention that everything we're going to be discussing here on Cablebox Theater will be available for free to the public in one form or another. In this case, you're going to want to head to YouTube. You're going to want to type in Wait Until Dark, Stacy Keach. After that, that'll do. That'll bring you to this particular production. HP, if you had to summarize the plot of Wait Until Dark, how would you do that?
So it's pretty easy to summarize. We have the protagonist is a blind woman, newly blind. I don't think she had an accident that rendered her blind. She has a husband who came back from a business trip with a doll that was given to him under mysterious circumstances. This doll is filled with drugs, heroin, and the people who want it back devise a plan by which they're going to use con men to try and convince her that her husband is involved in some shady dealings. This is all in an effort, a plot to convince her to give them the doll before the husband is aware of what's happened. And she's not nearly as helpless as they think she is, and that's where the story goes.
You can go ahead and spoil it. Listen, actually, speaking of spoilers, I did mention where you can see these things, but we are going to be spoiling the fuck out of everything we're talking about here. In a case like this, which is all predicated on mystery, this is a mystery thriller, you're going to want to seek it out if spoiling is a problem for you, because here we go.
Yeah, this is your last chance to see it. If you want, pause the podcast right now, go to YouTube, watch it, then come back and listen to us chop it up. Okay, so this is your last chance. Go. Okay, we're back. Let's talk about This Father Malone. Let's go for it.
Oh, let's go for it. Okay, so... Okay. I know I had seen this stage production on television like you did, I'm sure.
It was on a lot. I think part of the charm of these televised plays is, and I believe you made this point on one of your weekly roundups, which is there was a lot of air time to fill on these cable networks and not a lot of content to fill it. So this was one of those things. It was an easy way to fill time in a given day, right? Just videotape a performance of a play and just there you go, you slap it up there. So it was on a lot, but I can't say that as a 9-year-old I actually sat there and watched it from start to finish. I would usually turn on HBO. There's Stacy Keach doing his thing, there's Catherine Ross. I didn't have a lot of context, but I just remember the look of it, the stage set with the stairs. It's iconic. But I honestly don't think I really followed the plot much as a 9-year-old. Did you? I would assume you being much more refined in your viewing habits. Did you watch it all the way through as a kid?
Oh, yeah. Multiple times, over and over and over again. This felt like a suppressed memory when I re-encountered it. The image of Stacy Keach in an all-white suit during a dark out sequence, which the last act of this play, part of it takes place in total darkness, and although not obviously total darkness on stage, just a hint of light, but certainly he shines through the darkness in his white suits. I certainly remembered that. There were aspects of his performance that I had not remembered, and we're certainly going to get to that. Interesting choices. I remember really enjoying this production as a child. I felt like it was like somehow a version of Hitchcock that was available to young me. I felt like it was because all you kept ever hearing about thrillers and mysteries was fucking Hitchcock and how he had done it all, and it was already done. But here was this thing that was alive and breathing on the television in our home that was new. I didn't know there was a history with it being a readaptation of a film, but I certainly really liked the production a lot. Upon rewatch of both the film and this adaptation, I have come to a conclusion, which is I don't really like Wait Until Dark.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I still really enjoy it. I watched the movie again and I watched this production to prepare, and I will say I enjoyed it, but and maybe this is what you're getting at. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief required to watch this. It's not necessarily the most believable scenario. If I am these nefarious characters and I want to get this doll back from a blind woman, there's a lot of easier ways to do it than concocting this convoluted scheme with multiple characters, people playing different characters, walking in, coming out. I decided very early on that's the mode you have to be in to watch this. And once I decided to do that, I had a great time. I was on the edge of my seat. I thought it was really entertaining. But you just have to accept the fact that they're taking the long way home, right?
Knowing what we know about the criminal element, particularly with the character we're given here, Harry Rote, if this play, film, any iteration of it has produced anything, it's the fantastic character of Harry Rote, who in the film version, portrayed by Alan Arkin, portrayed as a psychotic beatnik, a very subdued psychotic beatnik, very low-talking, very measured performance.
He's menace personified for me in the movie. It's because maybe younger listeners to this podcast might know him. He's not necessarily known for his bad guy roles, right? He was
primarily known for comedies, yeah.
Right, Little Miss Sunshine, more recently, The In-Laws, I think he was in with Peter Falk, right? Of course, the return of Captain Invincible, which is one of our personal favorites. To see him in such, he really is scary in this role. To see him in such a nefarious, evil role is a revelation for me. Even now, rewatching it, I said, well, I forgot how really good he is, you know?
Yeah, I've always been of a mind of that the quiet villain is the scariest villain. And so his choices all through that performance are fucking great, because he loses it at the end because it's necessary to lose it by the end, but he maintains control until that last moment. He is wearing his sunglasses until he's doused in chemicals in the dark. He's a cool cucumber. Now, to your point about the stuff that you have to suspend disbelief on, now, the point I was making is that given a character like Harry Rote, he would immediately go into that house and knock her out or stab her to death and then ransack the place and find the doll and leave. That's what would have happened.
The only hole in that theory is that they don't know where the doll is. She doesn't know where the doll is. No one knows where it is until about 3/4 of the way through the play. So I could see him breaking in, killing her, whatever, disabling her in some way, but he's still not going to be able to find the doll. And I guess that's where the scheme comes in.
Yeah, it just seems a lot of machinations. And it seems a lot of costumes in order to convince a blind woman you're somebody else.
There is, because he portrays a man aggrieved by his wife who they portray as cheating on her husband with. And then he also plays that gentleman's father who comes in and upends the whole place. But to me, that's a delight in this case. We'll get to the 82 production, but in terms of the movie, it's a delight for me because Alan Arkin is just so good in every iteration of Harry Rote we get to see, because they're throwing everything but a kitchen sink at this blind woman, trying to convince her of this thing going down. And Keach, I shouldn't shortchange Stacy Keach, because he's great in a similar way. That he has to do the same things. He has to pretend to be different characters. He's got to try and convince this woman of the veracity of his story. But again, it's hard. He's very much in Alan Arkin's shadow through the whole production, I think.
I think if you didn't have Alan Arkin in that movie, it wouldn't be much of a movie on it.
Agreed.
And God bless, and we all love Audrey Hepburn, but she's a little too austere for playing the mousy, newly blinded housewife of a struggling photographer in a Greenwich Village basement apartment.
I didn't mind that as much because it gave me more sympathy, because I felt like because she seemed worldly and refined, that it was much more of a loss for her to lose her sight. The issue that I had with her performance might have just been the tenor of acting at that time. I just found her at times overly hysterical and overly, just laying it out there. A little more reservation, I think, might have improved it a little bit. But again, acting means and modes change with the decades, and I think that was just more appropriate for that movie at that time.
Would you say that she was better or worse than Catherine Ross in the same role?
I would say I enjoyed her performance better. Somehow I found her more believable. My issue with Catherine Ross was it was a decent performance, but it was almost too measured in how she conveyed the character a little bit. I wanted a little bit more, maybe a little more hysterics might have been more interesting to me, because she is in a very scary situation eventually she finds herself in, but it was a little too guarded, I think.
So what is the middle ground between Audrey Hepburn and Catherine Ross, where one is too hysterical and one is not hysterical enough?
I don't know. What do you mean, an actress who might have bridged the gap?
Yes. Angie Dickinson.
Angie Dickinson.
She could have done it.
She could have done it. I don't know.
Angie Dickinson circa 1966, like when they made the original movie, instead of Audrey Hepburn, stick Angie Dickinson in that role?
Could have been interesting. I don't know. Does she have the chops of an Audrey Hepburn?
How dare you? Does she have the chops of an Audrey Hepburn? She has just as many chops. They go to the same chop shop.
It's hard to. She was policewoman, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly taxing her acting ability.
She's Big Bad Mama.
Yeah, and you're only supporting my point.
I am not. How dare you? I'm saying she shines in garbage.
Oh, okay. I guess you raise a good point there, I guess. Probably as good of a choice of an actress as one that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Okay, let's agree. The only good thing about that movie is Alan Arkin, and we'll move on.
No, that's not true. I will reject that assertion. The other thing that, well, I won't boil it down to only these things, but I would say another thing that it has over the 82 production is the music.
Oh, well. Yeah, okay.
The music by Henry Mancini,
That's
I think
true.
is superior in the movie.
You think that's better than Lalo Schifrin's attempt in the stage production?
I do, because
Mancini
I think it was
versus
more innovative.
Schifrin? I didn't see this coming.
Yeah, I thought Henry Mancini's score was much more innovative. He used two pianos, but what was interesting was one was tuned 4 steps below the other. So it creates this weird dissonance, this uneasy feeling through the whole picture, especially towards the end. And I think that atmosphere was brilliantly captured. Not to say that Lalo Schifrin's score was something to sneeze at. It was fine. It was great. But in my opinion, it doesn't compare with the 67 soundtrack.
I will just say that they're both pretty great. I was not expecting a score for the stage production at all, so the fact that we got a good one and the fact that it was Schifrin made that one special. But I completely agree with you about the Mancini score. It is superior. And those discordant kind of notes that they're jangling on out during the opening sequence even. I had the movie on a couple of times, so at one point just had it on in the background, and I could not focus on what I was doing because there was something just stabbing me in the fucking neck. It was Henry Mancini.
Yeah, it's like this. It was like ASMR before there was such a thing as ASMR. It tickles this thing in your brain that makes you uneasy. By the way, did you know that Henry Mancini wrote the theme to What's Happening? Did you know that?
No.
I didn't know that either. I just found out. How cool is that?
That's absurd.
It's absurd. Anyway, we can move on. So yeah, I thought the music was superior in the 67 version. We talked about Alan Arkin.
I'll say this about the movie. The movie seems more set bound than the stage production filmed on videotape.
That's exactly what I was about to say, Father Malone. It was, if by that you mean it was more claustrophobic and more, you felt more closed in. I think the movie did a better job than that, but it only makes sense because you have the ability to have, different lenses to focus in on framing of cast and everything like that. It's harder to do that. I get that with a stage production. And also given the fact that the stage production is the original, we can't forget that. This movie was an adaptation, like you said. So Yeah, it was. I found it a little more effective in that sense, but the set is the set. It's iconic. When you see that the curtain come up on that 82 production, it's you know where everything is because it's I'm sure it's clearly written in the stage directions and everything where everything needs to be. But that staircase coming down the middle, the windows off to stage right, that's all brilliant. It's wonderfully captured in both cases.
Oh, I agree with all of that. But by setbound, I meant that the film production looks like they filmed it on a fucking set. It seems like they're in a studio somewhere.
I could see that. It is a little bit artificial.
They got a couple of pickup shots that may or may not be on the streets of New York. There's an Amsterdam thing and an airport thing at the beginning, or rather Montreal or some Canadian location. But once we get to that set, it's just a fucking set. It feels like a set, and then they go out onto the back lot.
Yeah, but to me, that's almost like a nod to the stage origins of the original play.
Absolutely not. Fuck you. Go to the Lower East Side. Fucking film this in a basement apartment. You have the ability to do that. It's 1966. This is the way to do it.
I didn't mind it. But I see your point. I just didn't mind it as much as you. I didn't mind the artifice of being on a set.
All right, so we're talking about the stage production of Wait Until Dark. Now, the stage productions, we've mentioned her. Catherine Ross is playing Susie in this one. Stacy Keach is Rote, and then a whole bunch of other people, including David Leisure, who is one of the policemen who rushes in at the end. And he was, of course, Joe Isuzu. Joe
Isuzu, and he was also in that sitcom Empty Nest with Richard Mulligan.
That's right, and he's one of the Hare Krishnas in Airplane.
That's right. That was his debut movie role, and this was his second big role, was cop number 2 in Wait Until Dark.
My God.
Pretty
Robin
cool.
Gamble, he's one of the cops in it. He's a recognizable face. He's terrible in this. He's the sergeant, Carlino.
Oh, yeah, but he lives in the shadow, let's face it, is it Jack Weston played the Carlino? And of course, what do we know Jack Weston from? Father Malone. The Four Seasons.
Don't eat in the Mercedes is all I have to say about Jack Weston.
Maybe we'll get to that someday, because that's also very stage bound.
Oh, we're definitely getting to that because they've got a television series on the way.
The rest of the cast of the 82 production, I couldn't pick them out of a lineup, but certainly it's Stacy Keach, it's Catherine Ross, and the fellow who played Mr. Hendricks. His name escapes me, but I've seen him in other things. I can't think of his name, though.
He's the senator in Porky's 2 the next day. He's trying to get reelected.
That's right. Edward Winter, you're right. But like you were saying, much like 67, this is all about Stacy Keach and Catherine Ross. The other two confidence men, Mike Tallman and Sergeant Carlino, I couldn't pick them out of a lineup, but it's all about Stacy Keach and Catherine Ross.
Okay, we've already talked about Catherine Ross. I think she's fine. I think she's giving a different performance. I think she's giving as you said, a more... It's odd because in the film version, Audrey Hepburn is over the top and Alan Arkin is completely underplaying it. And here in the stage production, Catherine Ross is underplaying it and Stacy Keach is going way the fuck over the top.
It's interesting that you put it that way, but you're 100% correct. Stacy Keach in this it's much more, like my impression initially was he's much more of almost like a haughty supervillain take on the character. He's laughing maniacally and just seems so happy. Well, not what's the word. He seems so. What's the word?
It's an effervescent performance.
Yeah, he's just over the top, laughing and menacing in a different way than Alan Arkin ever was.
I won't give it to you.
I won't give it to you. I won't give it to you. You remind me of somebody else who said that. Only she said, I don't know where it is. I don't know. 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 Susie. I've heard people say that before. Only she was much more stubborn. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
It's very Cesar Romero's Joker.
It's very Joker-like, and I did write that down. It doesn't go completely over the top until the moment that we're driving towards here, but it is very much like a Joker type thing where he's discussing his plan with the other two surrogates, And he's so amused by himself and by the machinations of the scheme that he's come up with. It's almost like he should be like, ha, 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 like doing these. He doesn't necessarily do that, but he's not menacing in a quiet way. He's menacing in a bellowy, take charge of the room kind of way. I don't know. How would you describe his performance?
He's unfortunately missing his patented Mike Hammer mustache here, because this is the perfect time to be twirling it with what he's going for. I wonder if he's chosen this tack for the character because of how understated Alan Arkin was. And because, let's face it, that in 1982, that movie is still fresh in people's minds, and Arkin's performance is still sitting there. Stephen King, in his book Dance Macabre, has an entire section devoted to this film, and that was like 1980, and he's describing it as one of the most horrifying experiences you could see. He's talking about a theater where the exit signs were burned out, so the entire audience was in total blackness during the finale. So I wonder if Keach is going, he did it so subtly. Let me just giggle and be happy, as opposed to quiet and ultimately outwardly menacing.
Did you know they wanted to kill me? I did. I knew it even before they did. They were awful amateurs, and that's why you saw through them. The lovely thing was the way I let them set it all up. All that silliness of meeting in the parking lot, the whole thing. They had comic book minds, so we did it their way, right until the end.
You would have to think that was a deliberate choice on his part, because it is so diametrically opposite of what Alan Arkin brought to the role. I mean, he, like you said, he's doing everything but twirling his mustache. He's, for lack of a better term, he's flouncing about the apartment as he's describing his scheme and their role in it and how all of this, whereas Alan Arkin, I think, is sitting through the whole analog that happens in the movie. Should we get to that moment yet? Because it's hard to keep talking about his performance without mentioning the part that goes completely batshit over the top. It's crazy.
HP, why are you trying to rush to our finale? Like, where do we go after that moment?
I can't help it, because we're dancing around it. Let's back up for a minute. Yes, I would say he must have had that top of mind as he's doing this, as I think anyone playing Rote would, that they're kind of in the shadow of Alan Arkin, because not only is it a definitive performance, but because it's committed to celluloid, it's not like a theatrical performance or play, a live theater performance where you just have the word of mouth to say, oh, that person was really good in that role. People can just pop in, they can watch it on TV, they can pop in a video cassette or later a DVD. Alan Arkin's performance is captured forever. So it's only ever as far away as your nearest entertainment system, right?
Now available on Tubi for free.
Exactly, which I think is one of the wonderful things about this series is, as Father Malone mentioned, these are all things that you can find for free. So enjoy that. That is it's great. It's just so easy. You can hear this and check it out. Anyway, my point is, if you're assaying the role of Rote, you've got to figure out a way to separate yourself from Alan Arkin's performance. And I think that's exactly what he did here, because even though he begins maybe in a little bit of an homage to Rote, he starts out with the glasses, doesn't he? He comes in with sunglasses.
Absolutely. He's completely aping Alan Arkin when he walks through the door. He's meeting everyone's expectations when he walks through the door for the first time. Oh, here we go. We're going to get some Alan Arkin now.
I got to say, so we talked about this a little bit beforehand, and I mentioned that for me, Stacy Keach is inseparable from Mike Hammer, because that was on TV when I was a kid. That was my first exposure to Stacy Keach. I know that he has history as a comedic actor. He was in Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams. He's done a lot. He's a very versatile actor. But for me, that's all I ever knew him as. So to see him in this is to appreciate that the man has range, and he can play a lot of different types of roles, not just the hard-boiled detective and not just the clueless cop. He's actually very good in this.
Yeah, this was my first exposure to Mr. Keach. And then on the heels of this, it was, as you mentioned, Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams. So for me, Stacy Keach has always had range, because he went from this terrifying performance to this ineffectual, bumbling He's in Up in Smoke as well.
Yeah, he's really, as I was watching this, I actually was thinking the older Stacy Keach, I think might have actually made, if they ever made a live action Dark Knight Returns, I think he might have actually made a pretty good older Bruce Wayne.
Oh my God, absolutely. If they had made in 1988?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
he had the right build for it. He had the right look. Either that, or even he actually might have even made a good Jim Gordon also, because he does look like Commissioner Gordon a little bit when he had white hair. But he had the build. He was stocky, a little wide. But yeah, to see him in this and to rewatch this after so many years gave me a new appreciation for how good he was. Like I said, because in my mind, he was already typecast as a hard-boiled detective.
You want to see a fantastic performance of Stacy Keach. 1972, The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean, starring Paul Newman. Paul Newman is horrifically miscast in the role. John Milius wrote that movie. And
oh, wow.
Stacy Keach shows up as a character named Bad Bob, who is an albino gunfighter. And it must be seen to be believed. Stacy Keach
sounds wacky.
Stacy Keach is fucking fantastic. He seems down for anything. He didn't ever seem bound by any genre or medium. He fluidly going between television and movies his entire life. And always a solid performance. All I can say is, Mr. Keach, we love you.
He's really good. Like I said, I'm so glad to have seen this and rekindled my admiration for the man. He's really good.
Oh boy, let's talk about Mr. Keach's biggest choice in this play. Now, in the regular play, as HP has mentioned, wrote his compatriot Lisa, who has smuggled the drugs, and it's not a compatriot at all. He was there to kill her at the airport, right?
Yeah. That's what motivates her to give up the doll, because she gets off the plane in the movie. She sees him waiting for him on the tarmac or whatever. And in a panic, she hustles over to this guy getting off the plane, who is Susie's husband, gives him a sob story about, I got to get this to a kid at the hospital. He takes the doll, and then she gets intercepted by Rote and eventually murdered by him.
Right. And yeah, in both versions, when Sergeant Carlino and other guy are in the apartment with Rote, they make the discovery that Rote has already placed the body of placed the body of Lisa, who was the drug mule, into the closet there, right? That's the last we hear or really see of Lisa, other than as dialogue for the rest of the thing. She doesn't really come back up, and certainly Alan Arkin doesn't really lean into what he did to her at all at the end of that film. But here in this adaptation, while the finale is going down, the finale involves Rote. He's killed both of his partners in this. They're both dead now. And he's alone with Susie in the apartment. He's chained the door, and he intends to get that doll. Susie has turned the tables on him, knocked out all the lights, but now he's gotten the upper hand again. And by opening the refrigerator. That's how it ends anyway. But before that, while he's interrogating her, alone with her in the apartment, and she knows he's got the knife and he's got a thing of gasoline, and he's taunting her, Stacy Keach has decided to open up Lisa's purse that he has kept, Mrs. Rote, she's referred to, and then he proceeds to put on makeup during his monologue and dialogue with Susie. What'd you think of this one, HP?
Yeah. And it's not even just that he's putting on makeup, but he's putting it on in a very exaggerated fashion. Like the lipstick is big and smeary on his lips. He puts rouge on. He even produces an earring and puts an earring on. But what the disconnect, that's weird enough as it is. But as he's doing this, he is basically describing almost beat for beat how he murdered Lisa, this woman Lisa, and what she was saying to him, and she was begging for her life. And I watched it, and then later I had to go back and rewatch just that scene, because I was watching it really late for the first time, and I had to say, did I hallucinate that? Did I dream that Stacy Keach was applying makeup grossly while he is basically taunting this woman and threatening to murder her? And there it is. And it's such a weird it's an inexplicable choice, but it's such an indelible image to me that honestly, like, I can forget everything else about this production, but this will stick with me because it's so out of left field and so jarring as a tableau that's happening as anything I've seen in these sort of cable plays. I don't know. What was going through your mind as you're watching this play out, Father Malone?
It reminded me that image that I had carried in my head of Stacy Keach since childhood, the one of him in the white suit, also included glistening lipstick as he was lunging. I was shocked that I had forgotten about this, but then I had forgotten a good portion of it. But certainly, yeah, inexplicable. Let's explic it. Now, is the choice here that Harry Rote will recount his murders and put on trophies of his victims and assume their identity for a moment? Is this a common thing? Because here's the thing. The psychopath Rote that Alan Arkin gives us is that low-key psychopath. Here, we mentioned the Joker. This is a lunatic performance of his. Like, once this makeup has gone on, he's way the fuck over the top. I'm not saying it's a bad performance. It's a good performance. It's just, I'm wondering if he has made that choice, that's what he's doing, or has he decided that Rote has some sort of dissociative sort of situation, or what I think is more likely than anything, this production comes on the heels of Brian De Palma's Dress to Kill, which had made a huge stir with a transvestite villain or transsexual villain.
For me, I think you would have... I don't think it's some indication that the character is gay or anything like that. I don't think it's that thought through. I don't know, I read somewhere, I know actors, they love props. They love to have business to do while they're delivering lines. It could be somebody lighting a cigarette, rolling a cigarette and lighting it as part of their whatever. I think this was partially just because actors like to do stuff with their hands and have business while they're delivering lines. And I think this was just yet another way for him to differentiate himself from the Alan Arkin version of Rote. This is so unexpected and, like I said, so indelible that it's a shocking choice. But here we are still talking about it 40 some odd years later. So it's interesting. What I would be curious about is, let me ask you, have you ever seen any other productions of Wait Until Dark? Is there anything approaching the weirdness of this moment?
I've not seen it produced with this choice for Rote as a character. This is an actor's choice or a director's choice, because this isn't in the book of the play. Yeah, the thing is, seen through the lens of today's current sexual lens, this is beyond problematic. But I just don't understand the intent behind it enough to comment on it, other than it's weird and icky and maybe not the best choice.
Certainly, as you said, and to modern viewers, it's definitely problematic, or only hints at how weird and awful it is and squishy it is. But I don't know. Again, he's good as Rote, but he swings too far in the manic, jokery, giggly, having way too much fun with this psychopathic role. That's why Alan Arkin will always be more effective, because he does way more with way less. It's hard to imagine Arkin making a similar choice with his version of the character.
Yeah, I don't think he had any evil intent in his heart. I don't think he was trying to punch down, but at the same time, it's maybe one for the dustbin. He's certainly scary. He frightened me. Look, here's the thing. If you're comparing this to the original film, there is no comparison in performances. Alan Arkin is just fucking terrifying and completely believable. And Keach leans into cartoonishness from time to time. And a lot of times it feels like, as we've mentioned, just a way to differentiate his performance from Arkin's. And it just feels like you don't need to go that hard. But as it turns out, we have an actual answer, right?
We do. This was an interview that Stacy Keach did with the Seattle Gay News in April 2009. The question was put to him by the interviewer. He says, towards the end, the interviewer says, in Wait Until Dark with Catherine Ross, towards the end of the show, your character pulls out lipstick and a feminine handkerchief, implying transvestite behavior. What inspired that interpretation? And Keach's response is interesting, and it lines up with what you were saying earlier, Father Malone. I thought it would be dramatic. This character had power over her, and yet she couldn't see him. But the audience could see me. I thought I'd show a duality, something theatric and dramatic. Plus, it was something to distinguish my interpretation of a role that was so well done in the movie. So there you go. That's exactly what we thought.
Did Quentin Tarantino go that hard in 2001 when he took over the role?
I can't imagine anything more horrifying in a different way than seeing Quentin Tarantino play the role of Rote, because on his best day, the man is nowhere near the actor that either of these gentlemen are, Arkin or Keach. And I
How
remember,
dare you? Have you not seen
Excuse me,
Destiny Turns on the Radio?
it's terrible. I don't need to, because I've seen all of his bit roles in all of his movies, all the cameos that he does. But I remember when he got that part, in that production of Wait Until Dark, and it's stunt casting. Let's call it what it is. I would not have put it past him being flamboyant in his choices to do something like that, but it would surprise me to no end if any of the other Rotes throughout the play's history have done anything close to that. But I guess in some way you could just mark that as another bit of fearlessness from Stacy Keach. The man doesn't care. He wanted to put his own stamp on the role, and by God, that's exactly what he did. Whether it stands the test of time as far as sensitivity that's what we're discussing, but it's certainly his own. No one can say different, right?
So, that is one way to describe it. Do you recommend people go watch this?
I do. But I think it's very worthwhile. I'm such a fan of live theater anyway. I guess people should understand that going in. I think we both are. And this is such a great opportunity for us to recapture the sort of wonder of these shows. And this was a great example of that, because I don't get out to as much live theater as I'd like to. And that's what these shows did so well. They brought the theatrical performance to your living room. And that's what I got from this as well. It was fun. It was like watching a live performance. And the performances are all, at a minimum, they're decent. Some of them are better than others. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. What did you think? What was your experience watching them after all these years?
You know, we've been getting a glut of live productions on television these days, whether it's reenactments of old episodes of sitcoms or, hey, it's Grease live, Rocky Horror live. And I understand the resurgence in popularity, and it speaks to what you said, which is it's nice to be able to sit at home and view professionals doing the thing, and something that you might not have gotten a chance to go out and spend $150 to sit in the back row. But I will say that this is the way I prefer it. This is a film, a tape of a production going on stage, where it seems like all of the recent television versions are just attempts to make movies in real time. They're very impressionistic, and they have lots of sets and moving parts, and the camera's always... And this is like sitting in the audience and watching a stage production. So that's what I like most about it. I still don't like Wait Until Dark. I think it's mediocre at best. I think Frederick Knott, who wrote it, he also wrote Dial M for Murder, and I think that is far superior. There's a reason they keep
undoubtedly
they keep remaking Dial M for Murder, which they've done 2 or 3 times now. Not so much this Wait Until Dark business, although it's ripe for a redo, right? Shouldn't they fire up the NBC engine?
There's riffs on it. I don't remember years ago, Victoria Principal did a TV movie where she was a blind woman, and not exactly the same thing, but I think there's been riffs on it. By the way, one of my favorite movie experiences was seeing Dial M for Murder in the original 3D in Brookline at the
Coolidge Corner, baby.
Coolidge Corner. Yeah, it was fantastic. But anyway, yeah, and I agree. I was actually encouraged when George Clooney, I think, was spearheading this notion of doing live performances on television. He did Failsafe was the thing that I remember most. He might have done 1 or 2 others, I don't recall. But I thought the attempt is noble enough in my mind, because you just don't see anything like this much anymore. To your point, it's usually let's redo an episode of Different Strokes or Facts of Life or All in the Family, and that's fine. I watch those and I enjoy them, but there's usually some attempt to gussy them up for a modern audience. To your point, there's nothing for me like seeing just a videotaped performance of a theatrical play played from start to finish. No artifice, no crazy editing or camera tricks, just the actors doing their thing. I agree.
Like a good old Playhouse 90. All right, we're gonna wrap this one up here. Thank you all for listening, all you patrons. This is a patron-only episode. I know I introduced it as this sort of inaugural one where we're sharing it with everybody, but that's actually not the case. This is just for you guys. Thank you all for listening. Keep subscribing or something. I don't know. Get more subscribers. HP, Where can these other people find you?
Oh, you can find me. I co-host the podcast called Night Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast with yourself, of course. I also am producing new episodes of another podcast called Noise Junkies, which is a music podcast. Please check that out as well. I'm an occasional guest on the Culture Cast with Chris Dashew. Enjoy that. And I have a Bandcamp site called hpmusicplace.bandcamp.com.
As for me, I'm not going to give you the Patreon thing. You're already here. But keep listening to Midnight Viewing. We're on there twice a week. You know that. Mondays, Father Malone's Weekly Roundup with Ripley Jean. And then Fridays or Thursdays or whenever the fuck I feel like it, well, I'll put out either a horror anthology podcast with Tales from the Dark Side I do with Chris Dashew and Mr. Mike White from the Projection Booth. And Anthologies Attack I do with Antonio Lepore. There's too many shows. And it's all for you. All for you, Patreon. And then I dive off with the noose on my neck. Remember Damien? Anyway.
Give till it hurts, people. Support.
Yeah, well, no, they're already supporting. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
I played Harry Road Jr. in the script. And he's a monster. He's a sadistic, drug-ridden psychopath. I think playing a heavy is liberating if you have a lot of rage and negativity in you that you want to expiate and are afraid to do in your own life. I have my problems like everybody does, but I don't think that's one of them. It wasn't liberating for me. In fact, I don't think anybody was terribly happy with what I was doing for a long time. I had a plan for this guy, and that was that he gets unleashed the first time he pulls a knife on somebody, which was weeks into the shooting of the film. I was playing him as what looked like him being a kind of a laid-back guy. But it wasn't laid back, like a snake being laid back. It's just waiting for an opportunity. He was on every conceivable drug known to man, and they were all kind of counteracting each other, so he was in a state of negative neutrality. I remember that for like 2 minutes after I pulled the knife for the first time in the script, everybody breathed a sigh of relief, and everybody said, oh yeah, okay, we see what he's doing now. It starts to make sense.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.